We cover the latest topics and trends making waves across the sport and chat with our industry's most prominent leaders, so your golf business stays one step ahead. Welcome to Golf Business Live, powered by Club Caddie. Here's NGCOA CEO Jay Karen, and owner of Augusta Ranch Golf Club and secretary of the PGA of America, Don Ray.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Jay Karen, CEO of the National Golf Course Owners Association. The ham to my egg over here, Don Ray, owner of Augusta Ranch Golf Club in Mesa, Arizona, secretary of the PGA of America. Don, how the heck are you this July 2021?
I'm doing great. I'm in Lexington, Kentucky for the Boys Junior PGA Championship and just watching these young gentlemen hit it a long way.
Fantastic. Well, you're on the road somewhere different every month. So, when I ask how are things in Mesa, Arizona, do you really know? Do you have, these Ring security cameras everywhere around the property to really kind of keep an eye on what's happening? Or do you have trustworthy staff? You can take your hands off the business, but what's happening back in Mesa?
Yeah, I go home, I was home for like a week and then obviously Katie's going off to college here in 5 weeks. So trying to cram in some time with my daughter before I start crying on August 21st as I drop her off at Bowdoin. But, it's funny. I think it's made me a better operator. You can get used to the smell of your own house. You can be too close to issues. And so I'm gone for a week and then I come back, I see things, whether it's the smells, like, why does it smell like that? What are you talking about? It didn't smell like that in the restaurant. Yeah, it does. So something's going on there, right? I think it's also staff getting to talk to the staff. Hey, how's everything going? And so instead of drawing, like, what's the performance of the facility as far as money, what's the performance of the facility as far as people? And, unfortunately, actually, we just had a great cook who passed away, fatal heart attack on Sunday.
Oh, sorry
and
to hear
that. The Augusta Ranch family's kind of reeling from that one. He was a great man, and he was really teaching the younger kitchen staff just how to keep always busy doing cleaning and stuff like that. It's one thing, to tell somebody this is the proper way to do it, but when they see somebody they admire or look up to side by side with them getting in there, Roger just did an amazing job of that. But we're still busy and we still, once again, like we talked before, making sure a lot of people hitting balls on the range, but it's not our regulars. The regulars buy the balls, but they're bringing people out to teach them the game. So, I'm still banging the drum that at Augusta Ranch that we have to keep walking that line and growing the game. We are looking into Top Tracer on the driving range. It's just, I think it's undeniable that if Topgolf works, a Top Tracer at a golf course or something like it, to where the first tee is 50 feet away instead of 5 miles, I can be my own funnel. So I look forward to something like that. So if anybody out there wants to talk to me about where I'm going with Top Tracer and how I'm doing it, obviously Kathy Harbin, who's your secretary of the NGCOA, she's doing it very successfully at her facility. So it's all those things. It's really seeing all these different facilities and how well they do it across the nation at these national championships, and then trying to take those best practices. So I think everybody should do a little more recon out there when you're playing or visiting and find out what other industries and what other facilities are doing, and maybe you can take home those best practices for your facility. I know it's working for me. Good
thoughts. And to the folks watching from home, don't forget to use the Facebook or YouTube comments section to enter your questions for us today. We have a great guest coming up in a little bit, Mike Whan, the new CEO of the USGA. Look forward to really chatting with him. Make sure you fire away with those questions. I just got back late last night from a 5-night RV trip around southern Vermont and eastern New York with my 15-year-old son. And we had the best time. And we're staying at these, when I say bohemian campgrounds, dry camping, in these places with our RV. It was a great experience. But I gotta say, it's maybe coincidental that the last night of our trip was at a campground that was adjacent to and behind a golf course in Ghent, New York. Ghent is called Meadow Greens Golf Course, little 9-hole facility. And, I figure that's serendipity that here I am going to a golf. We had to drive through the entire golf course to get to the campground. And we had time to spare and all this kind of stuff. And I thought, my son, who used to be into golf a little bit more, now he's into marching band and other things, but he played PGA Junior League golf a couple seasons. And I started thinking, oh man, well, one, it was a reminder, this little modest 9-hole facility trying to eke out this existence, in the pebble beaches of the world there in our industry, that it was just a wonderful reminder that it's all underpinned by the same game. No matter what size and scope of these businesses, it's still the same game that people are out there trying to hit this little white ball into a hole. It was fun to watch, but it also made me think of the rental club situation in our industry and how it is ripe for disruption and some progress, in the sense of you go to a bowling alley, there are balls there waiting for you and you're not having to pay for them, right? You just go up there, you don't need any equipment, just go up there. And maybe it's just me, but I own my set of clubs and we didn't bring it with us because we weren't planning on playing golf. But it made me think, man, what if every golf course in America had a more progressive rental club system with all the manufacturers out there where they're stocked with new clubs, a certain number of sets. But I knew I could walk up there, not have to pay $30 to rent a set of clubs, because I'm thinking, I don't want to pay $30. I paid $2,000 for my clubs or whatever. I don't want to, and my son's not going to want to pay $30 to play, to beat the ball around. It's like, oh man, what if America's golf course network was set up and stocked with clubs through some kind of new way of logistically getting these rental clubs in people's hands, and that we just knew we could walk up there and pay our greens fees and they'd have some nice clubs for us. I wonder what kind of increase we would see in rounds played and engagement around the country if that rental club fee was no longer a thing, right? And I know it's a very small income stream for most golf courses in America anyway, but I started thinking about car dealerships, and car dealerships say, if I can get someone in the car, get them behind the wheel, that'll sell the car. Just get them behind the wheel. Well, wouldn't you think that, Callaway and TaylorMade and these others that say, if I can just get my clubs in their hands, then my chances of a sale would greatly increase, right? And so how do we facilitate something where golf courses across America all have nice sets of clubs and there's some kind of economic arrangement, a different one, where, everybody's benefiting? I don't know, Don, what do you think about that?
So funny you bring that up, because I know why we do this show together, because we are grinding on the same thing. Because I was thinking about that. Like if I went to a bowling alley and I had to pay extra for a bowling ball, I mean, it would seem kind of weird to me. I know I'm going to grab some ball. Even during COVID, you still got to grab someone else's. There's a rental ball that's out there. But I'm with you. Isn't it funny that at golf courses there's loyalty cards and everybody's giving away a discount because that person's loyal? But the person who's not loyal to you because they've never played before, you're charging them more, and then you're charging them extra because they got to get a bag. Everybody's got to have a bag on a cart. I don't know where that rule came from, but that rule needs to get thrown out the door. What is the difference if I take you to golf and you've never golfed before and you're going to use my clubs? I mean, is that really slowing up play if we're playing out of one bag? Come on, that doesn't slow down play. I think that's ridiculous. And I'm with you. If my loyalty card rate is 20% off, I'm charging $50. All my loyal golfers are getting $10 off, paying $40. I mean, so now the golfer who's paying a full fee, who's new, if you did give them a free set of rental clubs, would it really impact you? And maybe if with these newfound technologies, when it's their first time ever visit. So maybe the first time somebody books a round, it sends them an email, says, hey, do you need rental clubs? It's your first time you ever played. They're on us. Here's the coupon code or something. There's got to be something we could do, because I'm with you. I think it's a revenue stream, but is it a barrier of entry that costs more than the revenue stream that you think you're making? I think it's a barrier of entry.
Yeah, and I actually am one of those guys that made an impromptu purchase because I fell in love with a rental set of clubs. I played Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, the resort out there, and I was just striking the ball unbelievably with this rental set. And I thought, I'm playing better with this set than my own clubs, and I bought those clubs. And imagine if I could buy those clubs from the golf course, and they get a commission, and it's shipped to my home the next day. We live in this Amazon world where we can get stuff the next day. I want these clubs back at my house tomorrow. Let me buy them now. And, there's got to be something that we can figure out. Before I move on, we do have a question about your Top Tracer range experience. It's from Steve Grable. Did you fit the entire range with Top Tracer or just a portion of the tee?
No, right now, Steve, we're just looking at a portion of it, maybe 10 bays. Not sure how I'm going to work the grass thing. I've talked to Kathy Harbin a lot. She's been very forthcoming with a lot of information, so I don't make too many mistakes. So I'm not going to do the whole thing, I don't think. I'm still playing with it. I was looking at going big league, fully in closed with a bar and all this stuff, the return's not quite there for that. So I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm just going to do some bays that have some heating and cooling kind of opportunities for it. But because at the end of the day, yeah, I don't want to build some. I mean, how often do golf courses build clubhouses that never have a return on investment? I certainly don't want to do that with my Top Tracer facility. But I think 10 bays is going to be the magic number, Steve.
Keep us posted on that. So a couple things in the industry that I want to make note of. One is Apparation is about to release their study of the market share study of the golf management software companies. And, we've had some new entries into the market the last few years. So it'll be interesting to see who's growing, who's shrinking. What do you think are the implications for any market shifts here among these software companies? So we for some reason, we really get fixated on the software companies in our industry. So what do you think are some of the implications of any market changes?
Well, I like when there's multiple companies because they tend to make each other better. I mean, when T-Snap first came out, they were the first ones that I saw that really tied customer information to the credit card number. So you no longer had to have 4 names in your T-sheet, which you never get. You always get just one person's name on the foursome. But now if everybody paid for something, I'd have their information because I had logged their credit card number, or, it's obviously in the cloud and tokenized. So I'm PCI compliant. But I worry if there's less and less. I'm kind of curious where those numbers are, because I think Chrono Golf, when they came in, they've kind of raised the bar a little bit. I know Tom Robshaw, Rick, that's who we use. I think they do a great job. I love where Darrell went with Quick 18. He started pushing the envelope for the revenue management side. And so then when you had the company out of who was Arnaud, Pre-Swing, who really had some innovative revenue management stuff. So I think competition creates better software, and that's our problem. A lot of big software companies don't want to get into an industry that's only got maybe 16,000 or maybe even only 10,000 customers on the public golf side. So I hope to see who's out there, and I hope to see that we're still competing, because say, for instance, if Golf Now had the most installs across the nation, are they really pushed to become better? I want better software that tracks people. So I worry about that. I want high competition because that creates a space race of good technology for our golf courses.
I wonder how viable that competitive marketplace will be. Like you said, if there's a finite number of customers here and the customer base isn't growing, the golf course supply isn't growing, then you're just going to duke it out over existing market, but you're right. Competition is a good thing here. One thing I'll mention just for everybody's information is that our advocacy team is on the case on something that apparently we learned that the Department of Labor, there's an appropriations bill that is proposing to eliminate the H-2B visa program almost altogether, or make it the bar so high for business to be able to apply. For example, unemployment must be at a certain level, or just amazing amounts. So we're on top of it. We're asking our Congress men and women to essentially, obviously, preserve that. I know there are a lot of golf courses in our industry that rely on that labor. But the interesting thing about this that we have to educate Congress about is that even if there's a high unemployment in the area, in a particular area, these are jobs Americans generally don't want to do. And they're not, so you can't really tie the availability and applicability of H-2B visas to unemployment when these, American kids these days, teenagers and others, that they don't want to do the hard work that a lot of H-2B visa employees are willing to do. And so we have to continue to educate Congress, but we want to let you know that that's on our radar screen. Just, make sure that you take a look at the most recent issue of Golf Business Magazine. The July-August issue just came out. Some great articles on how checking in at a golf course at the bar leads to increased sales. Duh, right? High margin alcohol sales. We love it. There's an article on latest in drone technology use. There's a great article on how the Major League Baseball abandoned the state of Georgia with the All-Star game, but that the African American Golf Expo did not and is not abandoning Georgia. And Harvey Silverman wrote a piece on why they're not abandoning Georgia in the face of these voter registration changes in the laws. Article on latest in CapEx projects at golf courses, and some great stuff from Boyne Resorts, an article on how they're embracing change. What a great NGCOA member. And then Whitney Krause at Bobby Jones Golf Links in Atlanta touches on changes in inflation, or the challenges of inflation and what that does at the golf course level. So really interesting stuff. Go to golfbusiness.com and check out those articles. And so we love bringing the magazine to the industry every 2 months. So, all right, what we'll do now is, without further ado, we're going to welcome the new CEO of the USGA, Mike Whan. Mike, there he is. Hey, it's right.
What's up, boys?
Good to see you, Mike.
I came in. We were talking about you like the smell of your own house and something about an RV trip. So I think I must have missed the good stuff.
You're thinking I'm on the wrong freaking show. What's going on here? Well, you know, for the folks at home, Mike is on his 14th day on the job at the USGA, which means at midnight tonight, the 2-week probationary period will be over, and he'll be fully employed tomorrow. But, you know, Mike is the most recent LPGA commissioner, and he was in that role for over 11 years and oversaw amazing growth with the organization and the things that it was doing. In his career, he spent time at Procter & Gamble, Wilson Sporting Goods, TaylorMade Adidas, and Mission Hockey. So a great career in the sports industry. And a reminder, folks, use your comment section to ask any questions for Mike, and we'll try to filter them through. You know, Mike, I first met you at the USGA annual meeting in Washington, D.C. about 5 years ago. And Mike Davis introduced me to you, and you said, "You're way too young to be running an association." I don't know if you still feel that way.
No comment. No, that was a good meeting all around. I think we had more people there than a typical USGA annual meeting, and it was a good opportunity. Those are great opportunities to network with the people that, and just like you and I started doing. I mean, I didn't realize all the things you were doing outside the golf course and vice versa.
Yeah, you know, and Mike and I see each other at least once a year at industry leadership meetings where we talk about some big issues impacting the industry. And so it's good to see you again. And there's a great read that came out, I think just yesterday in Golf Week magazine, interview by Beth Ann Nichols, a great an interview that I encourage everybody to go check out. Go to USA Today or Golf Week and read this great interview about your coming on board at the USGA. So, you know, I'm not sure if you've met Don Ray, the Secretary of the PGA of America. You guys know Don?
How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited about you taking the helm of the USGA.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been one of the longest transitions in golf's history, so I'm glad that it's finally over. I think at the end of the run, their LPGA players were looking at me like, "You're still here," and USGA people were looking at me like, "When you coming?" So I moved Memorial Day weekend to New Jersey from Orlando. I think I was the only person on the face of the earth moving that direction. Virtually every New Jersey person was moving to Florida. And we used to play an event here in Jersey at a golf course called Hamilton Farms. We had a match play event here for 7 or 8 years. And I bought a house on Hamilton Farms. I knew the course and I knew the club from those days. It's about 10 minutes from the golf house and USGA's headquarters. And I got to say, I never thought I'd say this out loud because I'm not a Northeast guy, but I think New Jersey is the prettiest place I've ever lived. And I've lived 25 years in California, a lot of years in the Midwest, and certainly in Florida. So it's a garden state for a reason. I used to make fun of that term, the Garden State, but now that I live here, I realize it actually is the Garden State. My wife and I both have really enjoyed the trip.
That's really good to hear. Yeah, we lived in New Jersey for almost 5 years in the South area near Philly, and we just loved it. It was a great time in our lives, great place. Great golf in that state too, man. Obviously some of the best in the world there.
Yeah, I mean, it's stunning how many great golf courses are within a 45-minute drive of where I'm sitting right now. Well,
we got some questions for you today, my friend, and nothing you're probably not used to. A battery of interesting questions. So, one of the things that I noticed in the article in Golf Week was that you commented on how impressed you were with, I guess, the variety of things the USGA works on, right? I mean, and do you feel? Comment on that a little bit. Like, what kinds of things did you see, and do you feel like that the USGA is in too many things or not enough things, the right things, or is that going to be your job is to figure this out?
Well, I haven't seen the article. I do remember having the interview with Beth Ann thinking I've been here 3 days. So what does it matter what I think after 3 days? But I had the same experience actually when I got to the LPGA. When I think like most people, when I sit next to somebody on a plane and have an LPGA shirt on, they talk about the LPGA Tour. They have no idea that we oversee the Symetra Tour, the Ladies European Tour. They definitely don't understand that there's 2,000 female teachers as part of the LPGA. And then you start talking about girls golf and leadership academies and some of the real fundamental foundation growing the game things. And to the average consumer, that's just way over their head. And that's okay. You just realize that, a lot of what we're doing that isn't on TV is sometimes is the heaviest lifting. And I think the same thing. I walked into the USGA. I was pretty aware of 14 championships. But, you walk in there and you realize, I walked out of one meeting where we were talking about agronomy and golf courses and how we were going to help them. And it's funny, you walked in talking about drones. We were talking about drone technology and how that was helpful. And that afternoon, I was just, going from one meeting to the next. I walked into a meeting that where we were talking about the handicapped systems from around the world and making sure that we really create an opportunity for golfers to be able to play with each other all around the world. And then, from there, I went to a meeting where we talked about where I just came from today, the U.S. Junior Girls Championship, and it's just the amount of impact opportunity I think through the USGA is pretty stunning. Not only is there a responsibility to the game, but I think there's just a lot of opportunities, and I probably should have known that because, like I said, for the average person who walks into the LPGA the first time, they're floored with all the other aspects that make up Ladies Professional Golf Association. But I think the same thing is definitely true at the USGA. I was loosely aware of these things, but really have really become engaged. And there's the stuff that, quite frankly, gets me the most intrigued because it's what I know the littlest about. One of the reasons I was excited about this job is I knew the learning curve would be steep again. I remember walking into the LPGA the first time thinking, why would anybody in this building listen to me? Everybody knows more about golf than I do. And now I walk into a USGA building every day and realize that virtually everybody who sits down at their desk is better at what they do than I am at what I do. And so I'm in a hurry to catch up. I don't want to be valueless forever, but right now I'm sort of the clueless one. And I'm looking forward to catching up so I can be as much value as they are.
It's an interesting perspective because, we might want to schedule a 1-year anniversary for this interview because some of the questions I have, you might have, some perspective on already just being, in your transition for a few months now. But, and so don't be ashamed to say, well, I don't know yet, and that's okay. But 1 year from now, we would obviously expect different answers. But let me ask you a question because, our teams at NGCOA work a lot with staff at the USGA on issues. In fact, once a year, we kind of sit down and we actually kind of show what's on our strategic plans, each of us, so that we can look for the intersections where we can be helpful to each other. And over the last several years, the USGA has really attempted to add more value to golf courses out there, where that's one of those things that not many people will know about. If you're a golfer, you probably have no idea of these things, right? You see the championships, you see the handicap system and all of this. So, have you spotted any early things right now where the USGA can continue to add or either more or better value, or do you see any opportunities to work more on the behalf of the success of golf courses, which are the economic engine of this industry?
Yeah, I guess I sort of knew, but every time I played golf, no matter what I was doing, I was touching something that connected our two businesses. So, whether it's entering a handicap, score, whether it's using tournament solutions for scoring in a member, that's generally something that together between the golf courses and the USGA and our golf association, between the two of us, we've put in place. It's agronomy program where a typical golf course, not just Baltusrol, but a real mom and pop, public course that's got issues with irrigation, that's got issues with a ravine that's causing a problem. They can bring in a USGA agronomist to actually provide assistance in that process. So whether you're talking about managing your members, managing the experience, or managing your course, those are all things that the USGA can play a role in and does in many cases. And if they're not playing a role in yours and not needed, that's okay too. But it's a consultancy business that I think we can do a better job of communicating, because I think the folks that are using it are really using it, but I think there's a good chunk of folks that don't even know it's available.
Yeah, it's like, I remember I've been in this industry in and out, but mostly in this industry for 25 years. And it was years and years and years ago, there was just kind of this desire for all the associations to stay in their swim lanes, right?
Yeah, right.
But the fact is we're interconnected. And I think we all have our strengths, but the more we can come together and bring our strengths to the table to help, in our case, golf courses be very successful, because the more successful golf courses are, the more players we have, the more handicaps we have, the more we're generating talent to compete in those championships. We're all kind of in this together. So I do like the fact when USGA was doing more and more to support golf courses, I think there were a lot of, wait a second, isn't that our swim lane? And I thought,
right.
Come on in the water. We're all in this together. And so I really like that in the last 5 or so years, there's been a change in posture among a lot of the associations to simply collaborate more because we're so interdependent. And I'm sure you've seen that at the LPGA, and you're probably going to see it even more at the USGA.
Yeah, it's funny at the LPGA. I sort of remember the swim lane comment more appropriately, where I knew there was times when I was probably playing outside what I was asked to do within the industry. I feel like the USGA is the world's greatest pond. I don't see any lanes at all, and so I'll help where I can, get out of the way where I have to. But I feel I took this job because like probably a lot of people on the call. I was a kid growing up. I started as a caddy. I hated it because I had to have to be quiet and B, have to watch somebody else play golf. Two things I'm not good at. And so I got involved with the grounds crew, and was a grounds crew member until the day I graduated from college. And so the game kind of taught me work first. It gave me freedom because on Mondays we played other golf courses that even to this day probably wouldn't have me as members. So I got to see other places that were exciting. And then, as I went through my career and started realizing that, that golf was not only my work, but my peace. I took the original LPGA job because I thought it was a good chance for me to give back to the game. Like I was going to come in and be this great give back. And 12 years later, I'm not sure I gave golf anything, but got a lot out of it. And I think at the USGA is the same thing. I feel like if the game is going to have this kind of impact on my life, why couldn't I spend a few more years, trying to make sure I have an impact going back? So there's nothing to protect. There's no, to your point, there's no swim lane that I feel like that I have to kind of watch out for at the USGA. I feel like the only thing that will really bother me is after 5 or 10 years in this job, if I don't feel like we used every resource we could to move the game forward. We got to worry about whether or not our kids and our kids' will have a better experience in this game than we did. And if it's just the same, then we failed them. There were the wrong people in the wrong position. So
what do you think? So let's talk more about that. So let's say your tenure goes on for, great long tenure at the USGA. What does success look like at the end of it? Because we can talk about the kind of work that you want to do, but what would success actually look like, let's say 10 years from now?
Well, I think there's 3 ways that sort of I think about success. And the first one is kind of different, which is I think a lot of people think about success and they think about what they have to do. And if I'm being honest with you, in my 12 years at the LPGA, for the most part, I helped other people bring to life their big idea. It wasn't my big idea. I mean, I got credit for it later, which was a nice bonus. But it was other people. Don will know this. When the PGA said, we want to get involved in women's golf in a big way and make the same kind of impact we feel like we've made in men's golf, my job was to help that become a reality, not to own it or get in the way of it or fight it or say, I'm sorry, that's the LPGA. I literally took an LPGA championship, 60-year championship, and asked my team to consider allowing that to become the women's PGA. Because to me, getting the PGA involved in a major way in the women's championships would be good for the game, good for their members, and quite frankly, really good for young girls who believe that this can be their game. I literally could rattle off 1 million of those. But when I first joined the LPGA, we had a really passionate foundation board, and they told me they were really proud that they introduced 4,500 girls to the game through girls golf. I remember thinking to myself, 4,500, couldn't even fill a baseball stadium. And now it's about 100,000 a year that are being introduced to the game because it was their vision. They knew that getting girls started in an all-girls environment, all I did was fuel the passion and figured out ways to make their idea come to life. So one of the things I'm going to be really focused on at the USGA is hearing what other people think can be big breakthrough moments and making sure that they have the resources and the power of the USGA to pull that off. And working with, if I'm being honest with yourself, after 12 years at the LPGA, the thing I'm most proud of is the people that I call friends. It's Seth and it's Jay and it's yourself and it's Martin Slumber, Susie Whale. I mean, these are some of my best friends in life. So when I thought about sort of walking away, I thought the first people I'll call no matter what I do next are those people. So in the USGA job, I'm going to have the same set of friends. I'm going to have the same people that I think I can call on when I need their help, and vice versa. It's if you'd have told me when I started at the LPGA in 2010 that we'd own 3 tours and the tour in Europe would have Keith Pelley and Martin Slumbers on the board of the women's tour, there was a time when that would have been laughable, and it's a reality. So it's fun to watch other people's ideas come to fruition. I've had some big ideas. Most of them don't work out as well as other people. So I've learned enough to know that when you meet somebody, as my father used to say, when you meet somebody who dreams bigger than you, hang around them for a little longer than you had planned. And I've met a lot of people that dream bigger than me.
That's why I hang around Don Ray. That man's got some dreams.
Well, then I have a good idea right now. So, I mean, Mike, I know you understand how, the PGA of America works. I'll be secretary now and then vice president and then president. So, hopefully I'll be seeing you for a long time. But started as a golf professional, out at Augusta Ranch Golf, the little par 61, and tried to embrace like the local association out there, the Arizona Golf Association, which is obviously part of the USGA. And we never could quite get it off the ground, but I just see all these databases out there of golfers, and maybe they're handicapped people, maybe they're not. But what I found at the AGA in Arizona is they were really good at hosting really good tournaments for all the good players. But the Joe Sixpacks of the world, they didn't want any part of, and that's who was playing my golf course. And I felt like we're missing a big opportunity of being our own funnel. Right now in the golf industry, we tend to use our third-party tee time providers as the funnel to bring people into our game. But yet we've commoditized that because now they're playing because it was less expensive. Obviously with COVID, it's so good right now. Right. But what I saw of your interview, that went yesterday, you talk about collaboration. You talk about this development league that you're like, wow, I see my foreign players, they had those in their countries, but we don't have it here. And man, I know the PGA would love to work close by with the USGA of just being more of a funnel to bring it in because of all those local associations in all the states. They've got great people there, great people who are just marketers. And those associations working with the local PGA sections on behalf of the golf course owners, just saying, we're going to bring you more players. And it's not going to be a tournament of great players. It's going to be a tournament of people who just want to have fun. Man, I think that would be awesome. And I believe truly that there's a reason for everything. Those relationships that you've built and now coming to the USGA, they have a lot more money in the bank than the LPGA did when you showed up. What can we do with those resources to grow the game truly? And certainly pace of play and those other things are good, but make golf your thing, and actually creating programs at the lowest levels to make sure that people get introduced to the game. As a par 61 guy, Mike, man, that's what I need because that's what's going to help send my daughter to college, right? And that's what this is all about.
Yeah, good for you. I mean, it's something that's sort of been eating at me since I first got to the LPGA. I have players from 50, 60 different countries. And every one of those players came out of a country development program except the ones from America. And those players that are playing at the highest level, I mean, they'll finish a season on the LPGA, their 10th season on the LPGA, and they'll still go back to their country team and country coaches and some of the things they learned. They're teaching them not just how to play golf, but they're teaching them how to grow up. They're teaching them how to hire and fire caddies. They're teaching them how to hire and fire their dad. If that's what they need, they're teaching them about nutrition and stretching and all kinds of things at an earliest age. So they're ready to whether it's just to pursue a career in the game or really pursue a competitive angle in the game. And I found it difficult to pursue that as the LPGA commissioner because I really was creating a global sport with global TV, and I didn't want to be seen as Mr. USA. But I've read my business card, and the first two letters are United in States. So I feel pretty comfortable that in this role, why wouldn't we create, Team USA and create a pipeline for young kids? Not just the ones, to your point, that have prowess, but the ones that just want to pursue something a little bit more competitive, no matter what the competition level is. And then if they really have higher aspirations, regardless of their income stature, because I also think, at some point, it's kind of like, I've said this before, but golf is kind of like skiing. If you get really good, you have to decide if you're wealthy enough to keep going. So we got to get to the point where if you start to get good, it shouldn't, where you live, what your zip code is, or how much your parents make shouldn't be determinant of whether or not you can really pursue this as a competitive career. So I have yet to meet any of my, buddies, if you will, in the golf industry where I talk about a USA development team who don't say, how can we help? Now, not all of them can sort of put their name on the banner for whatever reasons, but all of them are saying, how can we help? And in my experience, when you get that kind of response, so this might be one where the USGA really carries the flag at the front of the parade and everybody else is helping. There'll be a lot of other ideas where somebody else might be into the front of the parade and you may not know I'm playing in the band, but I promise I'm going to be pushing other people's ideas as well. But I don't want to, I've said this many times, on the women's side, you're seeing the difference of not having country support versus having country support and who's winning at the top of these majors. You probably don't see that on the men's side yet, but if you think that's not coming, as an American golfer, you're wrong. I mean, that's coming, and the Olympics is only throwing that into overdrive. It's not a non-American or pro-American point of view. I just want to make sure that the players that come out of the United States have the same opportunities to compete, grow their game, and quite frankly, get really good if they want to, at least have those resources available to them. And you've said it, Don. I mean, when I was at the LPGA, every idea I'd have driving to work on a Monday morning, the next thing I have to think about is who can I get to pay for it, right? Because I mean, it's it's great to have an idea at the LPGA, but you better make a phone call to somebody. So I'm excited about being at a place that I think can fund it. But these ideas are never great if you look behind you and realize you're the only one standing at the podium. The idea is like make golf your thing work when you look around and realize everybody else is pulling on the rope too. So that's why I like to kind of take these ideas out in the marketplace and say, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? And when 10 for 10 say, how can we help? That's when you know it's time to go.
We talk about player growth, retention, and trying to, funnels and just getting more people playing the game of golf in whatever version that may be. And USGA has spent some time in the last few years working on studying the golfer experience, in conjunction with University of Wisconsin Stout and the professors there. And we've highlighted a lot of that, the body of work, the body of knowledge that's come out of that. And, again, that's probably a few levels below. You probably haven't read the 50-page study on all this. But what I want to ask you about is, and this is as a golfer too, we always put our own golfer lenses on things, but to increase retention in our game, because we lose a lot of people that, in this game. A lot of people come to the game, a lot of people leave the game. And I tend to think that oftentimes people leave the game because of something that was a visceral response that they didn't like. This isn't for me, or I didn't like this, I'm not going to do this again. And then some people, leave for all kind of natural reasons. But do you think that it's about, increasing or improving the customer experience? Or is it identifying sometimes the things that cause you to say, wow, this was bad, and eliminating those things? So if those things didn't exist, then people would naturally stay longer. Is there anything that you see in the golfer experience that you feel like is there? Focus our efforts there. That's the killer of retention. I think,
Jim, I've been in these conversations 1,000 times. I think everybody wishes there was just the one magic bullet, right? Like, there's the answer. We'll throw a bunch of people money at that, and that'll solve it. But I would tell you, when you start studying the golfer experience, that's not a golf industry initiative. That's a golf course initiative. Because I would tell you that at my course that I'm right next to, what's keeping them from growing faster is very different than the one 30 miles down the road. And so just caring about what the golfer experience is phase one. I think for a long time, golf didn't really care because the core people could carry the day. But I mean, here's a great example. In 2020, when time was no longer an issue for the golfer, look what happened to the golf courses. Because when you had time to be outside, wanted to be outside, our golf courses filled. And they filled with people, to your point, I think you guys were having when I joined your call, that wasn't necessarily the core group that you always had. How did the core golfers respond to the new golfers that came in? Were they welcoming the juniors and the women and the people that were from a different background? Or was it just the opposite? I used to have a tee time every day at 8:30, and now I can't have it anymore. So I think there's definitely some experiential things. I also think sometimes at golf, we get so focused on what we call golf, meaning why, when this pandemic starts to end, will we go back to, if you didn't play 18 holes of golf, you didn't play golf? If somebody asked me, when's the last time you played basketball? I'd say I shot hoops with my kids in the driveway a couple of days ago. Now, basketball would consider me playing basketball. Golf would say, yeah, well, that's not really golf. I mean, if you swung a golf club in the backyard or went to Top Golf or played miniature golf. And I think we got to get over the fact that a club in your hand hitting a ball is welcome to the family, no matter how you get started in the family. So I think, I wish, I've said this many times, I wish we could start over, as a lot of us would, and there'd be 6 holes out and 6 holes back, and you play golf in 2 hours. And I love Don's 61 par course because it's a different experience. It can be fun and fast. And, if you see what's going on at Pinehurst with the Cradle, where we got over ourselves on shoes and jeans and music, and you can't get on there, right? You could probably get on number 2 easier than getting on the Cradle tonight. So I think as we start to relax what we define as golf, and as we start to realize that if you're having fun on a golf course, you're part of the family, I think we're going to be better. I think sometimes sports in general listen only to the core golf. I remember one time joining a Major League Baseball conversation, and the issue was, is interleague play going to kill baseball? And I remember thinking, interleague play, like the Yankees playing the Boston more often, is a problem. But, the core baseball people said, you can't do that. That's not what baseball's all about. And I remember saying in that call, if you're only listening to the people that are all in, you're never going to get the people that aren't, And so I'm not anti 5 handicaps, play 3 times a week. But at the same time, if you only build your golf course around that input, don't be shocked when you wake up with the only people playing your golf course is 5 handicaps 3 times a week, and they don't want the other pieces. So if golf courses want to keep the post-pandemic, they should be talking to people about why they came in the pandemic and what was the experience while they were there. I don't think it's a universal answer. I do know from my golf courses in California, they're very different than the golf courses in Florida, even though you say both warm weather courses. But I think if you care enough to ask, these silver.
Oh, there we go. We lost your feed there for a second. Let me make sure we can hear you. Just
Can
say
you hear
something.
us, Mike?
Yeah, he's still with us. Sorry, I had a call coming
There
in.
you go. Okay, cool. Yeah, I lost you for a second.
You know, and Jay, I wanted to jump in on what Mike just said because, you know, I completely agree. It's a golf course. But, you know, one thing we're not doing, Mike, is we just continue to preach to the choir. I mean, a little par 61, my advertising budget's not out there. So when I see things like Make Golf Your Thing, if those could possibly get out to the non-golfing public, right? 92% of America does not play golf. Is there a way that the USGA and the PGA can leverage their broadcast partners to get some commercials going on non-golf events? Maybe it's the NBA, maybe it's the NFL, you know, maybe it's just some TV show on a Saturday that my wife's watching. Maybe it's on the tablet because my wife and daughter don't even watch TV anymore. But I think that's where big associations who have some marketing partners can leverage those resources on behalf of the industry to drive people down to me. If you get them to me, I'm going to make sure they keep playing. Yeah. But I don't have the advertising budget to get in front of the non-golfers because I got to do what I can afford, which is just try to get some golfers playing more instead of new golfers. And I think that's where big associations can really help us get the message out that golf is not swing, stance, and score. It's family, it's fitness, it's fun.
I think, Don, the good news is not only do I totally agree with you, but for the first time, at least in my 20-something year, 25 years or so in the game, we're actually going there. You probably see it on PGA Tour or LPGA Tour telecast because hey, let's not kid ourselves. We'll take the free time that we have and run those. But for the first time, we've allocated real money to outside the golf of game awareness. A lot of it in social media, mostly because some of the audience we're looking for isn't easy to pick up on a Saturday on another sport. But some of it in other sports with our partners at CBS and NBC too. So yeah, I think Make Golf Your Thing is the first time we branched outside of, to your point, the audience we already know. You'll see it obviously in some tour events because we have that inventory. But even if you take a look at majors like US Open, big events like Players, a good 35% of that huge viewing audience doesn't really play the game very much. Interested enough to watch it, but not playing the game very much. So I'm excited to see us even using major opportunities to tell some of those stories because I think we all as golfers assume if I'm watching the Open Championship, I'm probably all in. But there's 4 or 5 times a year, no different than I don't play tennis, but I watch the French Open. I don't really watch a bunch more, but I watch those 4 majors of tennis. But the fact that I'm watching tennis means I'm probably interested enough to be intrigued. So yes, you'll see it in some of our bigger stuff, but I think you'll start to see it if you haven't already, because we all invested in a pretty big way to build a media plan that was outside of golf for this one.
Good. Mike, you said it's not all about that core golfer, that 5 handicap that's playing 3 times a week, that we have to listen to others. We got a great question from Kelly McCammon, that about 2.4 million people have a handicap, which is about 10% of the overall golfer population. Yeah. So, how do you plan to get more people to get handicaps if the handicap program is built around the most engaged golfers that care about, how well they're playing against, this number or what have you. So for the recreational player, the rest of the folks that haven't bought into it, do you plan on some changes to provide value to that segment of the golfing population?
Yeah, that's a great question. Whoever it came from, I would just tell you that if I'm being honest with the group, I think the USGA went through some technological IT challenges on the handicapping system a while back, and really feel like in the last year they've really got that nailed down, and then obviously rolled into the world handicap system. I think we're at the stage now. It's kind of like once you built the car and the car really runs, it's time to tell more people about the car. So I think what you can expect certainly from the USGA in the future is more education, not just about having a handicap, but really how a handicap can be part of your game. And it doesn't have to be part of the game that you might vision with 5 handicaps getting together, and how it can be part of your game any part in the world. It's one of the only sports in the world where you literally could tee it up with a tour player and have some sort of equalizer already figured out. Or you could play with that 5 handicap that plays 3 days a week, and you could be in Singapore and look at each other and actually build a fun game together where neither one of you feel disadvantaged. I don't know many other sports like that. There's no way to tie one hand behind LeBron's back in a one-on-one and then still try to play a pickup game with him. But you really can, with the World Handicap System, have fun and enjoy playing with all different levels and all different skill levels. And I think we're at the point now where we're really going to communicate that, which really kind of interesting and fun right now about handicapping is how in the States we sort of take it for granted. And we got 2-4, and the question is, why don't we have 5? But in the rest of the world, it sort of didn't really exist. And now really in the last 12 months, it's I was going to say blown across the country, but that sounds like the pandemic. But it is really picked up all over the world, and it's exciting to see in our world, literally world handicap questions coming in virtually every hour from all over the world about how to get more engaged in countries that you and we may not really think of as golfing countries, but it's a great facilitator for the game, and something I think we probably take for granted, but it's a huge advantage for the sport.
We look forward to seeing the growth of that, really do. Will you keep a high profile social media presence in this role like you did as commissioner? Because, the other commissioners and leaders of the governing body, they don't have these strong social media presence. Is the board there, the executive committee, giving you the rope to have your own social media presence? I
think the good news is I'm pretty sure most of my board members aren't real heavy Twitter users, so they probably don't know if I have a regular Twitter following or not. Yeah, we're not. My group at the LPGA talked me into, like, back in 2012. We decided in 2012 to put the Twitter handles of all the players on the back of the caddy bibs. And I remember I got a call from a buddy of mine who works at another sport I won't mention, and said, "Why don't you put the LPGA's Twitter handle? Like, why are you putting their Twitter handles?" And I said, "Do you think it's more interesting to follow me or Paula Creamer? Do you think it's more interesting to follow the LPGA or to follow Morgan Russell?" So we really were pushing. We realized that fans get more engaged with the game when they can actually be engaged with the athletes. I'm not sure the fans are more engaged with the LPGA because they can actually yell at the commissioner, but if it makes them feel better to yell at the commissioner, it's funny. My wife would always say, "Why don't you get rid of that stupid Twitter handle?" And I'd say, "Why?" And she goes, "You wake up every morning, 1,000 people call you an idiot, and then you drive to work." And I said, "Yeah, it's just part of the. I said, if I wasn't the commissioner, I'd probably be one of the 1,000 call him an idiot." So I enjoyed the game too much, I think, not to be able to kind of be part of the conversation. I get it. We're going to do some stupid things at the USGA. I did some really stupid things at the LPGA, and people are going to, jump on the bandwagon for it. I think if you're thin-skinned, you probably shouldn't take one of these leadership jobs in golf anyway. If not Twitter, people find plenty of ways to tell you you're an idiot, and they'd find a way if I wasn't on Twitter. But for me, it was important for me to follow my players. It was important for me to follow my sponsors, and I enjoy it. I mean, I'm now of the era where I get most of my news on social media, not by reading a newspaper or watching a TV program. So I've been warned. My dad said to me, like, buckle up because it's coming on a U.S. Open week. But we'll see. I'll try to hang in there as long as I can.
I like that it's not just letting go of the reins of marketing a little bit and branding, but embracing the democratization of it and having the players do it and all that. That's embracing it is I think turned out well for you guys. So good.
I think sports in general are better because, I mean, to me, fantasy football changed things where you knew who the third string tight end was for the Kansas City Chiefs, and used to sort of not now, but you're hoping the first string guy gets hurt, so your tight end gets in. But then I think when you got to social media, you had a chance for, and I can tell you, I raised 3 boys, and they're all in their 20s now, but through their teens, kind of social media was coming up, and it was interesting to watch them watch different athletes and sort of different people they followed, and they learned, study habits and food habits. And there's plenty of bad things to learn on social media, but there's plenty of good things to learn too. And for me, it's I just had an exchange this morning with a kid who's playing in the U.S. Junior Girls Championship, and it was an awareness of that event that I probably wouldn't have had otherwise. And so I don't know, maybe I talked myself into it, but I know I'll go through bad weeks where I'll be reading them. I just will act like I'm not reading them.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot. I got a couple last questions before we sign off. Do you, seeing this week that Wimbledon, the prize money for the women is equal to that of the men. Do you see possibly in your tenure that the U.S., the women's U.S. Open winner gets the same prize as the winner of the men's Open?
I do. I think every sport needs a Wimbledon. Wimbledon did it first, and the other majors followed. I don't know. I mean, for me to say I do, and then I have to go figure out how to do it is one thing. But yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty tough to sit down and look at your little boy and your little girl and tell them about their dreams can be as big as they want to in the game. It's just, but when you get to about 13 or 14, his dream can be about 40% larger than her dream. Like, how do you explain that to somebody? I've said this many times. Title IX didn't happen because somebody walked in with a piece of research that proved that viewership over the next 40 years was going to be bigger for women. finally a bunch of congressmen got together and realized telling their daughters it was okay to not have an opportunity to play in high school was no longer acceptable. So would I love to be the Wimbledon of golf? I would be. I don't know if I'll be able to get there in one shot, but I don't think anybody who knows me for the last 12 years, and certainly any player that knows me, would even question whether or not me at the USGA is going to figure out how to. I don't think it's fair to just take money from other things and stick it into the women's purse. But I can figure out, I mean, one thing I can do for a living is I can raise money. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to find people that share that passion with me, and their company shares that passion. Let's figure out how to give, women an 8-figure purse, because, right now there isn't any of those. So I don't know that I'll get them all the way there, but I promise it'll be running downhill while I'm here.
That's exciting. That's really exciting. And I've got a couple of once and for all questions. Is it pronounced gin or gin?
It's pronounced gin by me, but my team might tell me differently. Right now we're in COVID time, so the average number of people in the building is about 12. So I go to Mike Davis told me the other day that he's going to send me a glossary of terms because he'd heard so many of my interviews. Like I say, pins and not flag sticks, and bunkers and not sand traps. And he's like, buddy, we got to work on you. So I still have to go through my USGA vocabulary education. Is it the British Open or the Open? Well, I know how that get answered inside the USGA, but you can answer that however you want to. Is it amateur or amateur? I don't know. Who cares? You're not a pro. Yeah, I love it. All right. Well, I'll close with this, Mike. You have a partner in the NGCOA and our team and our leadership to help keep this industry sustainable and thriving. So we look forward to working with you and your team and seeing what happens. And we'll schedule a check-in here at Golf Business Live a year from now to see how things are going, how we can be helpful, and what's changed. It seems to be that the pace of change is faster than ever. So and I would say as somebody who spent the last 12 years here, both of your organizations, PGA and NGCOA, are not afraid of making change and making failure. You're more afraid of not making change. And what I've told people many times is, I don't know if my tenure at the USGA will help us go faster or slower, but we won't be afraid of making mistakes, and we'll take our knocks for when we do. But the only failure would be not trying. And I think the good news is, for when I left golf in 2000, I was kind of frustrated that there was no working together. Everybody, to your point, everybody stayed in their lane, and they're very polite. They're typical golfers, very polite, but just didn't want to play with each other. And when I came back in 2010, what I was floored by is how the PGA worked with the PGA Tour, and the PGA Tour actually liked the European Tour, and the RNA and the USGA learned how to work together. And I'm really excited about the collaboration that's happening at the top, because I always say this to my boards: however we act as a board is how the culture of this company is going to go, because stuff rolls downhill. You know it, and I know it. So if we stay collaborative as a group, if Jay, Seth, myself, Martin, if we can stay engaged and really kind of pulling together, we're going to make some mistakes, but it won't be, but we shouldn't be afraid of not trying. And I'm excited. I don't know how much impact we can make, but I promise you we won't be afraid of making impact. Good. Let's take some risks together, right? So you got it. Good work. Well, welcome aboard on the new ship, the different ship. And we look forward to working with you, and we'll see you again soon. To all the viewers, thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you next month when Golf Business Live comes back in August. Take care, everybody. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, guys.